all of high society danced beneath the banners and cascading arrangements of perfumed flowers. Tiaras and tie pins sparkled in the mirrors. Young debutantes were introduced to suitable sons. The whirl of Victorian life spun round and round to the dreamy melody of a sweeping waltz. Then there is the other version. This is the tale of 1887 which most choose to forget. To this day, only a scant number of history books recount it. Surprisingly few people even know that it occurred. Yet in that year, this story filled more column inches than the descriptions of royal parades, banquets, and fetes put together. That Jubilee summer had been an exceptionally warm and rainless one. The clear blue skies that presided over the season's carefree picnics and alfresco parties had shriveled the fruit harvest and dried out the fields. Water shortages and an absence of seasonal agricultural labouring jobs only served to exacerbate an already growing employment crisis. While the wealthy enjoyed the fine weather from beneath their parasols and from under the trees of their suburban villas, the homeless and poor made use of it by creating an open-air encampment in Trafalgar Square. Many had come into the centre of town looking for work at Covent Garden Market, where Londoners bought their produce, but a drought meant fewer boxes of plums and pears to lift and haul. With no money for lodgings, they slept rough in the nearby square, where they were joined by an increasing population of unemployed and homeless workers who would rather turn to the street than face the deplorable and demeaning conditions in the workhouse. Much to the horror of observers, these campers could be seen making their morning ablutions and scrubbing their vermin-infested clothing in the fountains directly beneath the nose of Lord Nelson, who peered down from high atop his column. When the autumn began to move in, so too did the Socialists, the Salvation Army, and various charitable organisations, handing out Bibles, admission tickets to lodging houses, coffee, tea, bread, and soup. Tarpaulins were raised in makeshift bivouacs. Impassioned daily speeches were made between the paws of the giant bronze lions. The excitement, sense of community and free refreshments swelled the number of outcast Londoners, which brought the police, which in turn brought the journalists, who roamed among the square's bedraggled population collecting the names and stories of these otherwise anonymous squatters. Mr. Asheville called himself a painter and glazier by trade. He had been out of work for 12 months, 33 nights of which had been spent sleeping on the embankment, until the weather grew too cold, and he moved to Trafalgar Square in the hope it might prove a bit warmer. Dejected and visibly worn by his experience, he attempted to remain positive about his prospects of one day finding employment. A soldier's widow circled Trafalgar Square selling matches to support her young son, but she hadn't always lived like this. After failing to pay the final instalment on her hire purchase sewing machine, she had lost her livelihood and then the single room she had called home. As she knew that going into the workhouse would mean that her child would be separated from her, roughing it in the square each night with him curled up under her shawl seemed a better option. An elderly couple who had never before faced adversity found themselves sleeping together on one of the square's stone benches. The husband of the pair had been employed as a musical director at a theatre, but suffered an accident that rendered him unfit to work. With no savings, they soon fell behind on their rent and eventually were forced to make their bed under the stars. The thought of throwing themselves upon the mercy of their local workhouse was too shameful and frightening even to consider. Hundreds came to Trafalgar Square to lay their heads against the paving stones, each with a similar tale to tell. It did not take long for political agitators to recognise that this congregation of the downtrodden was a ready-made army of the angry with nothing to lose. Londoners had long realised that Trafalgar Square sat on an axis between the east and west of the city, the dividing line between rich and poor, an artificial boundary which, like the invisible restraints that kept the disenfranchised voiceless, could be easily breached. In 1887, the possibility of social revolution felt terrifyingly near for some, and yet not close enough for others. At Trafalgar Square, the daily speeches given by socialists and reformers such as William Morris, Annie Besant, Eleanor Marx and George Bernard Shaw led to